When Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett appeared on CNN with Jim Acosta, viewers expected a civil political discussion. What they got instead was an unforgettable moment of live television that quickly spiraled into an intellectual takedown. From the outset, Crockett entered the studio calm and collected, flashing a confident smile. Acosta, known for his sharp questioning and blunt style, wasted no time jumping into a topic about congressional ethics and recent controversies involving House members. He challenged Crockett with a tone suggesting skepticism about her stance. On a hot-button issue, rather than retreat, she leaned in. "Jim, I think your question assumes a level of hypocrisy I'm not bringing to the table," she said. The energy shifted immediately. Acosta raised an eyebrow, seemingly caught off. Guarded by her composure and directness, what followed wasn't a typical interview, it was a verbal chess match. Crockett had already made her first bold move. Acosta tried to regain control of the narrative by doubling down, asking whether Democrats like Crockett were truly serious about transparency or simply using rhetoric. "Isn't it fair to say both parties play this game?" he asked. Crockett didn't flinch. "What's not fair," she said, "is pretending that standing up for my constituents is the same as enabling corruption." The audience could sense the tension rising, and even Acosta's facial expression began to change. He shifted in his seat and tried to interrupt, but she didn't let him. "You've had guests on this show who lie with impunity," she continued, her voice growing sharper. "But when someone shows up with facts, suddenly we're being combative." Acosta blinked, briefly speechless. The moment trended almost instantly online as viewers began sharing clips of Crockett's.com yet cutting delivery. It was no longer just an interview, it was a public schooling. As Acosta regrouped, he attempted to pivot to another issue, questioning Crockett about her stance on police reform. "Your critics say your approach alienates moderates," he said, trying to reframe the narrative. Crockett smiled. "My critics often confuse boldness with extremism," she responded smoothly. "But I'm not here to make moderates comfortable. I'm here to make change." Her words landed hard. Acosta's typical technique-rattling guess with layered questions was falling flat. The Congresswoman maintained her tone and made clear that being unapologetically progressive didn't mean she lacked nuance. "You want to talk policy?" she added. "Then let's talk facts, not headlines." Acosta laughed nervously and said, "Well, this is live TV after all." But the power dynamic had already shifted. Crockett was steering the conversation with clarity. Jim was visibly playing catch-up, which only fueled the viral energy the clip would soon generate. Jim tried to get back on offense, bringing up a quote of Crockett's from a past town hall meeting and suggesting it was overly provocative. But before he could even finish, Crockett interjected, "Jim, you're quoting me out of context, and that's a disservice to both your viewers and journalism." That line visibly stunned Acosta. "Let's get it right," she continued. "I said what I said, and I stand by it. But let's not twist it to fit your narrative." There was a subtle murmur from the production crew off camera, a shared recognition that something remarkable was unfolding live. Acosta nodded, trying to play it off, but the damage was done. Crockett's mastery of the moment wasn't just in her content hit, it was in her timing, poise, and command.
She wasn't
rattled, even as the seasoned host searched for a new angle. The studio had shifted into her domain, and the audience could feel it. At one point, Acosta attempted to soften things up with a smile and remarked, "You're tough to debate, Congresswoman." She didn't miss a beat. "I'm not here to be debated. I'm here to be heard," she replied. That line echoed across social media within minutes. It wasn't just a clapback. It was a redefinition of what political discourse could look like. Acosta tried to chuckle, but it came off as awkward. For someone used to controlling conversations, this moment was clearly uncomfortable. Crockett didn't raise her voice, didn't resort to insults, and didn't lose her cool. But her words carried so much power that it felt like a direct confrontation. Political analysts began to take notice immediately. They described it as a rare moment where the host becomes the story. But for Crockett, it wasn't about headlines. It was about standing firm in truth, not letting the platform be used to distort it. As the interview neared its end, Acosta attempted one last pivot, asking if Crockett believed the Democratic Party was in danger of losing its base due to internal divisions. People don't leave a movement because of debate, she said. Leave when they feel unheard. It was a measured, thoughtful answer that left no room for misinterpretation. So maybe the better question, she continued, is whether your coverage reflects the real people we're fighting for, or just the drama that sells airtime. Acosta tried to counter, but paused, realizing he'd walked into yet another precise critique. There was nothing left to spin. Viewers noted the look on his face, a blend of frustration, disbelief, and reluctant respect. He finally said, "I guess we'll have to leave it there." Crockett smiled once again. "We sure will." And with that, she had closed the conversation. On her terms, firm, fearless, and utterly unfazed, the internet exploded. Within hours, clips of the interview flooded every major platform. Hashtags like Crockett clap back and Acosta owned trended on X and TikTok. Young voters especially shared her lines like mantras. "I'm not here to be debated, I'm here to be heard," was already printed on t-shirts by that evening. Pundits debated whether Acosta had underestimated her or simply walked into a rhetorical buzzsaw. Either way, the public consensus was clear. Crockett didn't just survive the interview, she owned it. Media outlets scrambled to get statements from both camps. Acosta remained quiet, while Crockett's office issued a simple post. "You speak truth with clarity, even critics listen." Analysts called the exchange a defining moment in her rising career, and news cycles couldn't get enough. The Congresswoman had turned a live TV segment into a national mic drop moment. Her stock only rose higher as a result. Behind the scenes, CNN producers reportedly didn't know how to react. Some admired the fiery exchange, noting it boosted ratings, while others felt Acosta had been caught flat-footed. Internally, there was talk about whether future interviews with firebrand politicians needed more prep or a different tone. For Crockett, however, the moment served as validation not only of her message, but of her method. She showed that poise and precision could dismantle media narratives more effectively than outrage. In meetings that followed, her team was flooded with requests from other networks, talk shows, and podcasts. But Crockett made it clear, "I go where I'm respected." That ethos only increased public admiration. Even critics who disagreed with her politics acknowledged her presence and composure. She hadn't embarrassed Acosta with volume, she had done it with truth, intellect, and confidence. And in today's media landscape, that's a rare combination. Later that week, Acosta lightly referenced the interview during a different segment, joking that some guests don't hold back. The chuckle that followed felt hollow. By then, it was clear that Crockett's appearance had outshone the show itself. Political commentators on both the left and right were still dissecting her statements and the impact they had on viewers. For many, she had crystallized a sentiment felt across the nation that media often dances around power, and that it takes people like her to speak directly. Her lines weren't rehearsed, they were lived experiences. The public responded to that authenticity. Even those unfamiliar with her before now knew her name. She had crossed into the broader political consciousness through nothing more than truth and timing. As the story settled, one takeaway remained. Never underestimate a sharp mind with something real to say, especially not in front of a camera. In the days that followed, Crockett's presence on the national stage only grew. Opinion pieces praised her clarity, and editorial boards applauded her courage. Meanwhile, memes and sound bites from the interview continued to circulate. But beyond the viral fame was a deeper shift. Crockett had forced a reckoning with how politicians, especially women of color, are often cornered into playing defense. Instead, she went on offense with facts, composure, and conviction. And in doing so, she didn't just win an argument, she elevated the standard for public discourse. Jim Acosta may have thought he was conducting a routine interview, but what unfolded was anything but ordinary. Jasmine Crockett walked onto that set as a guest and walked off as a political force. One thing was clear to everyone watching, she had made her point, and Acosta's face said it all.